Commander Jake Martinez stood on the bridge of the New Horizon and watched the massive alien ship grow larger on the main screen. The ship was beautiful in a way that made him feel small. It looked like someone had carved it from a single piece of blue crystal, with smooth curves that caught and reflected starlight. No human ship had ever looked like that. "Sir, they're sending another message," said Lieutenant Lisa Cooper from her station. She looked nervous, and Jake didn't blame her. This was humanity's first real meeting with an alien race, and everyone knew how important it was. "Put it through," Jake said, trying to keep his voice steady. The screen changed to show a tall, elegant woman with pale blue skin and large silver eyes. She wore robes that seemed to shimmer like water, and a thin crown of what looked like living metal rested on her head. When she spoke, her voice was soft but clear. "Human vessel New Horizon, I am Princess Lyreth of House Varen. I welcome you to the edge of Zelanian space. The High Council waits for you on the capital ship Eternal Grace." Jake stepped forward. "Princess, this is Commander Jake Martinez. We're honored to meet with your people. We hope this can be the start of good relations between our species." The princess nodded, but Jake noticed something strange. Her eyes seemed sad, almost tired. "Follow our escort ships, Commander. The talks will begin in 6 hours. I look forward to meeting you in person." The transmission ended, and Jake found himself staring at the empty screen. Something about the way she had paused made him think she wanted to say more but couldn't. "Well, that seemed friendly enough," said Captain Ron Blake, Jake's security chief. But even he didn't sound convinced. 3 hours later, Jake and his team walked through the docking tube onto the Zelanian ship. The air smelled like flowers and ozone, and everything around them glowed with a soft light that seemed to come from the walls themselves. Their escort was a tall male Zelanian with the same blue skin and silver eyes, but his face showed no emotion at all. "I am First Speaker Veltar," he said in a voice like ice. "You will follow me. Do not touch anything. Do not speak unless spoken to. Do not look directly at the High Council members unless they give you permission." Jake exchanged glances with Lisa and Ron. These weren't the kind of rules you made for equals. The meeting room was huge, with a ceiling that seemed to go up forever. 5 Zelanian women sat on throne-like chairs that floated above the floor. In the center sat a woman who made even the princess look ordinary. Her skin was pure white, her eyes like molten silver, and her crown was clearly real metal shaped into flowing patterns. This had to be Empress Silandra. "Humans," the Empress said, and somehow she made the word sound dirty. "We have watched your little ships crawling between stars for 50 of your years. You are very young, very crude, but perhaps useful." Jake felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his voice level. "Your Majesty, we've come here hoping to learn from your people and share what we know in return." One of the other council members laughed, but it wasn't a nice sound. "Share? What could you possibly have that we would want? We have survived wars, plagues, and disasters that should have destroyed us," Jake said. "We've learned to adapt, to find new ways to solve old problems. Maybe that's worth something." The Empress waved her hand like she was brushing away a fly. "Survival is not impressive when it comes from luck rather than skill. Let me tell you what we offer, humans. We will allow some of your people to work in our outer colonies. You will mine our asteroids, build our stations, and serve our needs. In return, we will protect you from the dangers of space and allow you to exist." Jake felt his team tense up behind him. This wasn't a treaty between equals. This was slavery with fancy words. "I don't think that's going to work for us," Jake said carefully. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. "You refuse our generous offer?" "We came here as friends, not servants. If that's all you're offering, then we have nothing to discuss." For a moment, Jake thought the Empress might order them thrown out an airlock, but then she smiled, and somehow that was worse than anger. "Perhaps you need time to think about your position, Commander. One day we will meet again, and you will understand that refusing the Zelanian Empire is not wise." The meeting was over. As they walked back through the corridors, Jake noticed Princess Lyreth standing in an alcove watching them leave. Their eyes met for just a moment, and he saw something there that surprised him. It looked like hope. Back on the New Horizon, Jake sat in his quarters staring out at the stars. Tomorrow they would leave Zelanian space and return to Earth with news of their failure. But he couldn't stop thinking about that moment with the princess. Something about this whole situation felt wrong, like there was more going on than anyone was saying. A soft chime told him someone was at his door. "Come in." Lisa stepped inside looking worried. "Sir, we're getting a private message. It's coded, but it's coming from the Zelanian ship." Jake stood up quickly. "Show me." On his personal screen, text appeared in perfect English. Commander Martinez, please meet me in your ship's observation deck in 1 hour. Come alone. There are things you need to know about my people that the Council will never tell you. Jake stared at the message. This could be a trap, but something told him it wasn't. The princess had looked at him like she was drowning and he might be the only one who could throw her a rope. Sir? Lisa asked. What do you want to do? Jake deleted the message. I'm going to take a walk in an hour, alone. If I'm not back in 2 hours, assume the worst and get us out of here, sir. I don't think that's an order, Lieutenant. 1 hour later, Jake stood in the observation deck looking out at the alien ship. The room was dark except for the starlight, and he was beginning to think the princess had changed her mind when he heard a soft sound behind him. He turned and saw her standing in the shadows near the door. She had taken off her crown and fancy robes and now wore something simple and dark. Without all the royal decoration, she looked younger, more vulnerable. Thank you for coming, she said quietly. I wasn't sure you would. Your message said there were things I needed to know. She walked over to stand beside him at the window, staring out at her own ship. My people are dying, Commander Martinez. Not their bodies, but their souls. And I think you might be the only one who can help save them. Jake looked at Princess Lyraheth standing beside him in the dim light of the observation deck. She seemed different now, away from the cold formality of the throne room, more real somehow. Your people look pretty alive to me, Jake said carefully. That ship of yours is incredible. Your technology is centuries ahead of ours. The princess made a sound that might have been a laugh, but there was no joy in it. Technology, yes. We have machines that can do amazing things. But when did we last create something new? When did we last solve a problem in a way no one had thought of before? She turned to face him, and in the starlight her silver eyes looked almost human. Commander, how old do you think our empire is? I don't know. A few thousand years? Try 50,000 years by your counting. 50,000 years of the same ideas, the same solutions, the same rigid thinking. We have perfected the art of doing everything exactly as it was done before. Jake frowned. But your ships, your cities, all built using designs that are older than your entire civilization. We don't innovate, Commander. We simply maintain what our ancestors created. She looked back out at the Zilanian ship. Do you know what happens to a species that stops growing? Before Jake could answer, she continued. It dies. Maybe not all at once, but slowly, piece by piece. We have become so focused on perfection that we have forgotten how to change. And now that inability to change is going to destroy us, and I don't understand. You're the most powerful species in this part of the galaxy. Princess Lyraheth was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, Have you ever heard of the Korthak swarms? Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Machine intelligence. We've heard rumors, but nothing confirmed. They're real, and they're coming. Her voice was barely above a whisper. They've already taken 3 star systems on our outer borders. Our fleets fight them, but every battle is the same. Our ships move in the same formations our ancestors used 10,000 years ago. Our tactics never change. The machines learn from each battle, but we never do. She turned to face him again. The Korthak adapt. They change their strategies, their technology, their approach based on what they learn. They are everything we used to be before we decided that change was dangerous. Jake started to understand. And you can't adapt because of your culture. Exactly. In our society, everyone has their place from birth. A warrior fights exactly as warriors have always fought. A leader leads exactly as leaders have always led. To suggest a new way is to question 50,000 years of tradition. It's not just discouraged, it's forbidden. But you're here talking to me. Because I am desperate. The words came out fast, like she had been holding them in for a long time. Because I have watched our fleets return from battle with fewer ships each time. Because I have seen the fear in the High Council's eyes when they think no one is looking. Because I know that unless something changes, the Zilanian Empire will fall within 50 years. Jake looked at her carefully. What does this have to do with us? With humans? Everything. She moved closer and he could see the intensity in her eyes. I have studied your species for months, preparing for this meeting. Do you know what I found most fascinating about humans? Our good looks? Jake tried to lighten the mood, but she didn't smile. Your chaos, she said seriously. Your beautiful, wonderful chaos. Humans never do anything the same way twice. You argue with your leaders. You question everything. You take old ideas and mix them with new ones to create something no one has ever seen before. She gestured out at the stars. In 50 years of space travel, humans have developed 17 different faster-than-light drive systems. 17. We have used the same design for 20,000 years. Not all of our designs work that well, Jake pointed out. That's exactly my point. You try things that don't work. You fail and then you try something else. Failure teaches you, makes you stronger. We never fail because we never try anything new. And that means we never learn. Jake began to pace, thinking. So what are you asking for? You want us to help you fight the Korthak? No, her answer surprised him. I want you to help us learn how to fight the Korthak. I want you to teach us how to be human. I'm not sure that's possible. Neither am I. But I have to try. She paused, then said something that made Jake's blood run cold. Because there's something else. Something I haven't told you yet. What? The High Council knows about the Korthak. They know we're losing, and they have a plan. Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. They're going to use your people as bait. Jake stopped pacing. What do you mean? They want to give you colonies on our border worlds. Places where humans can live and work, just like they offered today. But those worlds are directly in the path of the Korthak advance. The Council thinks that humans might fight differently than we do. Might slow the machines down long enough for us to prepare better defenses. You mean they want to feed us to these machines and see what happens? Yes. And when the Korthak have finished with your colonies, they'll know everything about human tactics too. It won't save us, but it might buy us a few more years. Jake felt anger rising in his chest. And you're telling me this because? Because there's another way. A better way. But it requires both our species to do something that has never been done before. She walked over to one of the display screens and activated it. Images appeared showing star charts, battle formations, and technical diagrams. I've been working on this for months in secret. A plan that could save both our peoples. I'm listening. A true alliance, not the master-servant relationship the Council offered you. A partnership where humans and Zilanians work together, learn from each other, combine our strengths. The images on the screen showed mixed fleets, human and Zilanian ships working in coordination. Your adaptability combined with our technology. Your innovation guided by our experience. Together we might be able to do what neither of us could do alone. Jake studied the plans. They were impressive, but there was one obvious problem. The High Council will never agree to this. They made it pretty clear today that they see us as inferior. You're right. They won't agree. Princess Lyra looked at him with eyes full of determination and sadness, which is why I'm prepared to force their hand. How? She took a deep breath. By doing something that will scandal both our governments and create a crisis that can only be solved through alliance, Jake. Had a feeling he wasn't going to like what came. Next, I'm going to marry a human, she said quietly. Tomorrow, before my formal engagement to Duke Thalmaroon is announced. I'm going to create a political marriage that binds our species together and makes it impossible for either government to ignore the other. Jake stared at her. That's insane. Your people will never accept it. The young ones will. The ones who are tired of watching our empire slowly die. And once it's done, both our governments will have to find a way to make it work. But you'll be throwing away your whole life. Your position, your future, everything. Princess Lyra smiled, and for the first time since he'd met her, she looked truly happy. Commander, I am third in line for a throne that will probably not exist in 50 years. My future was to be married off to a duke I've never met to produce children who will inherit a dying empire. What exactly am I throwing away? Jake looked at the star charts again, then back at her. There has to be another way. If there is, I haven't found it. And we're running out of time. She moved to the door, then stopped and looked back. I don't expect an answer tonight, Commander. But think about it. Think about what your people could accomplish with Zilanian technology. Think about what my people could learn from human creativity. And if I say no, then tomorrow I marry Duke Thalmaroon. Your people get fed to the Korthak. And in 50 years there won't be any Zilanians left to remember that we once had a chance to save ourselves. She left him standing alone in the observation deck, staring out at the alien ship and wondering if the princess was crazy, brilliant, or both. Jake didn't get much sleep that night. He kept thinking about what Princess Lyra had told him, and about the choice she was asking him to make. By morning, he still hadn't decided what to do. That decision was made for him when alarms started screaming through both ships. Commander, to the bridge. Lisa's voice crackled over the communication system. We have an emergency. Jake ran through the corridors of the New Horizon, his heart pounding. When he reached the bridge, the main screen showed chaos. Red warning lights flashed on both human and Zilanian displays. "What's happening?" Jake demanded. "Korthak attack on the border world Veltara," Lisa reported, her fingers flying over her console. "The Zilanian fleet is mobilizing, but they're asking for our help." "They want our help?" Captain Ron Blake looked surprised. "Yesterday they treated us like servants." Before Jake could respond, Princess Lyra Eth's face appeared on the screen. She was wearing military armor now, not royal robes, and her face was grim. "Commander Martinez, I know this is not what we planned, but we need you. The attack is bigger than anything we've seen before. Will you help us?" Jake didn't hesitate. "We're with you, Princess. What do you need?" "Follow our ships to Veltara. I'll brief you on the way." 20 minutes later, both ships were racing through space toward the battle zone. Princess Lyraeth's image appeared in Jake's ready room, along with a tactical display showing the situation. "The Korthak have sent 50 ships," she explained. "They're not just attacking the planet. They're systematically destroying our defensive positions and studying our responses. Each time we counterattack, they adapt to our tactics." Jake studied the display. The Zilanian ships were moving in perfect formation, like a ballet in space. It was beautiful, but he could see the problem immediately. "Your ships are too predictable," he said. "Look at this pattern. They're moving exactly the way ships moved in the last 3 battles, aren't they?" The princess nodded sadly. "Battle Formation 7, perfected over thousands of years. Our commanders know it will work because it always has. But the machines know it too now." "Exactly. And our commanders cannot conceive of fighting any other way." Jake leaned forward. "What if we don't fight their way?" "What do you mean?" "Human ships are smaller, faster, and more flexible than yours. What if we hit them from angles they don't expect? Force them to respond to something completely new?" The princess looked uncertain. "The High Council would never approve such irregular tactics." "Then don't ask them." Jake stood up. "This is combat, not a ceremony. Sometimes you have to break the rules to win." An hour later, the New Horizon and 5 Zilanian ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Veltara system. The sight that greeted them was devastating. 3 Zilanian defense platforms burned in space, while enemy ships that looked like crystalline spiders methodically dismantled the planet's orbital stations. "Zilanian fleet, this is Battle Commander Sylveth," came a voice over the communication channel. "Form Battle Formation 7 and prepare to engage." Jake watched the Zilanian ships begin to move into their traditional pattern. On his tactical display, he could see the Korthak ships already shifting to counter the formation they had seen so many times before. "Princess," Jake said on a private channel, "if your ships follow that formation, you're going to lose half of them in the first 5 minutes." "I know," she replied quietly. "But I cannot convince the battle commander to change tactics. Then we'll have to show him a better way." Jake turned to his crew. "Ron, take us around the back of the Korthak formation. Amy, plot a course that keeps us behind the enemy ship's sensor arrays. Lisa, prepare our fighters for launch." Navigator Amy Stone looked confused. "Sir, fighters can't do much damage to ships that size." "They're not supposed to do damage," Jake smiled grimly. "They're supposed to be annoying." As the Zilanian fleet advanced in their perfect formation, the New Horizon slipped around the enemy's flank like a shark in dark water. The Korthak ships focused on the main Zilanian force didn't notice the small human vessel until it was too late. "Launch fighters," Jake ordered. "Target their sensor arrays, not their weapons. I want those machines confused, not destroyed." 6 human fighters screamed away from the New Horizon, moving in patterns that no Zilanian pilot would ever attempt. They weaved between the Korthak ships, firing at sensors and communication arrays before spinning away in completely random directions. The effect was immediate. The machine ships began to turn and twist, trying to track targets that refused to follow any logical pattern. Their perfect formation started to break apart as individual ships tried to respond to threats from every direction. "Now," Jake said into his communicator, "Princess, tell your ships to attack, but not in formation. Have each ship pick a different target and hit them as hard as they can. But that's not how we fight." "Today it is." Princess Lyraeth's voice came over the general communication channel. "All ships, this is Princess Lyraeth. I am taking command of this battle. Ignore Battle Formation 7. Each ship choose your own target and attack immediately." "Princess, you have no authority." began Battle Commander Sylveth. "I have the authority of someone who wants to live." She snapped back. "Follow my orders or watch your ships burn." For a moment, nothing happened. Then one Zelanian ship broke formation and dove toward a Korthak vessel, its weapons blazing. Then another. Within seconds, all 5 ships were attacking in a pattern of beautiful chaos that the machine minds couldn't predict or counter. Jake brought the New Horizon into the center of the battle, its weapons adding to the confusion. "Amy, take us between those 2 big Korthak ships. Ron, prepare boarding parties." "Boarding parties?" Ron looked shocked. "Sir, those are machine ships." "Exactly. Machines follow programs. If we can get inside and mess with their programming." Lieutenant Dan Miller, their communications officer, looked up from his station. "Sir, I'm picking up data transmissions between the Korthak ships. They're sharing information about our attack patterns. Can you disrupt those transmissions?" "Maybe, but I'd need to get closer." "Princess," Jake called over the communicator, "we need one of your ships to get us next to the biggest Korthak vessel. Can you do that?" "Already on it," came her reply. Through the view screen, Jake could see her ship diving toward the largest enemy vessel, its shields blazing as Korthak weapons tried to stop it. "She's going to get herself killed," Lisa muttered. "No," Jake said, watching the princess's ship dance through enemy fire with skill that would have impressed any human pilot. "She's learning." The New Horizon followed the princess's ship through the gap she had created, coming alongside the massive Korthak vessel. Ron's boarding parties cut through the enemy's hull while Dan worked to hack into their communication systems. "I'm in," Dan shouted. "I can see their data streams. They're sharing tactical information faster than we can adapt to it." "Then let's give them some bad information," Jake said. "Upload false data about our ship positions and attack patterns." As Dan worked, the battle around them began to change. The Korthak ships, suddenly receiving contradictory information about where the human and Zelanian vessels were, began firing at empty space. Their perfect coordination dissolved into chaos. Princess Lyra Eth's voice came over the communicator, and for the first time since Jake had met her, she sounded excited. "Commander, it's working." "The enemy ships are fighting each other!" Through the view screen, Jake could see Korthak vessels firing on their own allies, confused by the false data Dan had fed into their network. The machine intelligence that had made them so dangerous was now working against them. "All ships focus fire on the command vessel," Jake ordered. "If we can take out their central coordination, the rest should be easy." The combined human and Zelanian fleet concentrated their attacks on the largest Korthak ship. Without their perfect coordination, the machine vessels fell quickly. Within an hour, the entire Korthak force was destroyed or fleeing. As the last enemy ship disappeared into faster-than-light travel, Princess Lyra Eth's face appeared on Jake's screen. She was smiling, really smiling for the first time since he'd met her. "Commander, that was incredible. We won a battle that should have been impossible. Your people fought well, Princess. They just needed a chance to show what they could do when they weren't following someone else's rules." "The High Council is going to be furious," she said, but she didn't sound worried about it. "Let them be furious. You just saved a world and proved that humans and Zelanians can work together. That has to count for something." The princess's expression grew serious again. "It counts for everything, Commander. Because now I know my plan can work, and I hope you know it too." Jake looked out at the mixed fleet of human and Zelanian ships working together to help the survivors on Veltara. For the first time since this whole crazy adventure started, he began to think that maybe, just maybe, the princess's impossible plan might actually succeed. After the battle at Veltara, both fleets returned to the meeting point where this had all started. But everything was different now. Jake could see it in the way the Zelanian crews looked at the human ship, and in the way his own people carried themselves. They had fought together and won. That changed things. Princess Lyra Eth requested a private meeting as soon as they docked. This time she came to the New Horizon instead of meeting in secret. She walked onto the bridge wearing her military armor, and Jake could see that the other Zelanians with her looked at her differently too. She wasn't just a princess anymore. She was a war leader. "Commander Martinez," she said formally, then smiled. "Jake, we need to talk." They went to the conference room along with Lisa, Ron, Dan, and communications officer Beth Rodriguez. The princess sat down and looked at each of them. "The High Council is meeting right now," she said. "They're deciding what to do about what happened at Veltara. Some of them are angry that I took command, Others are angry that our traditional tactics failed. But all of them are scared. Scared of what? Jake asked. Of change. Of admitting that 50,000 years of tradition might be wrong. She leaned forward. They're going to order me to return to the capital world immediately. Tomorrow morning they're going to announce my engagement to Duke Thalamaroon. Once that happens, I'll have no power to make any decisions about alliances or treaties. Can't you refuse? Not without causing a civil war. And a civil war now would destroy us faster than the Korthak ever could. Jake looked around the table at his crew. They all understood what she was really saying. So this is it, he said quietly. Your plan with the political marriage. You still want to go through with it? Not want to, Jake, have to. Her voice was steady, but Jake could see the pain in her silver eyes. It's the only way to force both our governments to work together. If I marry a human leader, both sides will have to find a way to make the alliance work. Beth Rodriguez spoke up. Princess, forgive me, but who exactly are you planning to marry? It's not like we have a king or anything. I've been thinking about that. The Earth government could appoint someone, a representative or ambassador who would have the authority to speak for humanity. The marriage would be symbolic, but it would create a legal bond between our peoples that couldn't be ignored. Lisa frowned. But what about you? Your happiness, your life? The princess smiled sadly. My life was never going to be my own, Lieutenant. At least this way my sacrifice might save both our species. Jake stood up and walked to the window. Outside he could see the Zilanian fleet preparing to leave. In a few hours the princess would be gone, and humanity's best chance for a real alliance would disappear with her. There has to be another way, he said. If there is, we need to find it tonight, the princess replied. The dawn ceremony is in 8 hours. After that it will be too late. Dan looked up from his tablet. What if we could prove to both governments that the alliance is necessary? Show them what we accomplished at Veltara was just the beginning? How? Asked Ron. We could create a detailed proposal, Beth suggested. Show both sides exactly what they would gain from working together. Jake turned back to the table. Princess, what would it take to convince your people that humans are worth partnering with, not just using? Proof that human methods work better than ours. But not just in one battle, in everything. Strategy, technology, even culture. And what would it take to convince human leaders that this alliance is worth the risk? Access to Zilanian technology and knowledge that could advance human civilization by centuries. Jake felt an idea forming. What if we could design something that neither of our species could create alone? Something that would require both human innovation and Zilanian technology to work? The princess's eyes lit up. Like what? I don't know yet. But if we could show both governments a project that would only succeed through cooperation. Lisa started pulling up files on her tablet. We have the tactical data from Veltara. The battle recordings show exactly how human and Zilanian methods complement each other. And I have detailed studies of both our technologies, the princess added, activating her own device. Things that the High Council has never allowed outsiders to see. Jake looked around the table. All right, people. We have 8 hours to design the future. Let's get to work. What followed was the longest night of Jake's life. They worked in teams, with the princess and Beth designing political frameworks while Jake and Lisa worked on military applications. Dan and Ron focused on technological exchanges and training programs. As the hours passed, their project grew from a simple treaty into something much bigger. They weren't just planning an alliance, they were designing a new way for different species to work together. Human creativity guided by Zilanian wisdom, Zilanian technology enhanced by human innovation. Look at this, Lisa said, showing them a tactical simulation. If we combine Zilanian ship design with human fighter tactics, we could create squadrons that would be unbeatable against the Korthak. And here, the princess added, displaying her own screen. Human agricultural methods could help us feed 3 times as many people on our colony worlds. We've been using the same farming techniques for 10,000 years. As dawn approached, their proposal had grown into a comprehensive plan for cooperation that neither government could ignore. But Jake could see the exhaustion in the princess's eyes and the sadness that she was trying to hide. Princess, he said gently, even if this works, are you prepared for what it means? You'd be giving up everything you've ever known. She looked at him with those silver eyes that had become so familiar. Jake, I've spent my whole life watching my people slowly die. If I can trade my personal happiness for their survival, isn't that what a leader should do? Use me tonight, she whispered so quietly that only Jake could hear. Help me find the words that will convince both our governments that this is the only way forward. Help me sell myself for the future of both our species. Jake felt something twist in his chest. This brave, brilliant woman was willing to sacrifice everything for her people, and there had to be a better way. Princess, what if the marriage didn't have to be literal? What if it was symbolic, a ceremony between civilizations rather than individuals? She stared at him. What do you mean? A marriage between humanity and the Zilanian Empire. Not two people, but two species. It would create the same political bond, but it wouldn't require you to give up your personal freedom. Beth looked up from her tablet. That could work. In Earth law, we have corporate mergers that create legal entities. This would be similar, but between governments. But would your people accept such a thing? The princess asked. If we present it right, they might, Jake said, especially if we can show them what both sides would gain. The princess was quiet for a long moment, and Jake could see her thinking furiously. It would be unprecedented, she said finally. But that might be exactly what we need. Something so new that neither government could dismiss it using old arguments. There's only one way to find out, Jake said, looking at the clock. Dawn was less than 2 hours away. We need to send this proposal to both governments now, before the engagement ceremony begins. The princess stood up, looking more determined than Jake had ever seen her. Then let's change the galaxy. As the first light of dawn began to filter through the observation windows, they uploaded their proposal to both Earth and the Zilanian capital. Now all they could do was wait and hope that their impossible plan might actually work. Whatever happens, the princess said, looking out at the sunrise. Thank you for helping me believe that there was another way. Jake stood beside her, watching the light grow stronger. Thank you for showing us that some things are worth fighting for. In a few hours, they would know if they had saved two civilizations or doomed them both. The dawn ceremony was supposed to begin in 1 hour when the first response came through. Jake was on the bridge drinking his 4th cup of coffee when Lisa called out from her station. Sir, we're getting a transmission from Earth. It's marked Priority 1. Jake's heart pounded as the message appeared on the main screen. Admiral Sarah West, head of Earth Space Command, looked tired but excited. Commander Martinez, we've reviewed your proposal. The Earth Council has voted, and we're prepared to accept this alliance under the terms you've outlined. We're authorizing you to represent humanity in any formal agreements. Jake felt relief wash over him, but he knew this was only half the battle. Any word from the Zilanian government? Not yet, sir, Lisa replied. Princess Lyra Eth's voice came through the communication system. Jake, I need to see you immediately. The High Council is meeting, and they want to speak with you. 10 minutes later, Jake stood in the same throne room where this had all started, but the atmosphere was completely different. The Empress sat on her floating chair, but instead of looking down at him with contempt, she was studying him carefully. The other council members looked confused and worried. Commander Martinez, the Empress said, her voice cold but respectful. You have presented us with an interesting proposal. A symbolic marriage between our species rather than individuals. That's correct, Your Majesty. It would create the same political bond that Princess Lyra Eth suggested, but without requiring anyone to sacrifice their personal freedom. One of the council members spoke up. This is completely without precedent. We have no laws or traditions for such a thing, which is exactly why it might work, Princess Lyra Eth said from where she stood beside the throne. Our old traditions haven't been working. Maybe it's time to try something new. The Empress was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something that surprised everyone in the room. Princess Lyra Eth, you took command at Veltara without authorization. You used tactics that violated every military protocol we have. You achieved victory against impossible odds, she paused. Why? Because I chose to adapt instead of following rules that weren't working, Your Majesty. And you believe our entire civilization should do the same? I believe our civilization will die if we don't. The Empress stood up from her throne, something Jake had never seen her do before. Commander Martinez, if we accept this alliance, what exactly would you expect from us? Partnership, Your Majesty. Real partnership. We share what we know. You share what you know, and together we create something neither of us could build alone. And what makes you think humans and Zilanians can work together? Jake smiled. Because we already have. At Veltara, your people and mine fought as one fleet. We combined our strengths and covered each other's weaknesses. It worked. The Empress walked down from her platform until she was standing directly in front of Jake. You realize that if this alliance fails, both our species could be destroyed? Yes, Your Majesty. But if we don't try, we'll be destroyed anyway. She stared at him for what felt like forever. Then she turned to the council. I call for a vote. All in favor of accepting this alliance? 4 hands rose, including the Empress's own. Only 1 council member voted against it. It is decided, the Empress announced. The Zilanian Empire accepts this alliance with humanity. Princess Lyraeth, you will serve as our first Ambassador General to this new partnership. Jake felt like he could breathe, again for the first time in hours, but their celebration was cut short when alarms began blaring through both ships. Dan's voice came over the communication system. Commander, we have a massive Korthak fleet approaching. 50 ships, maybe more. They'll be here in 20 minutes. Jake looked at Princess Lyraeth. Ready to test our new alliance? She smiled. I thought you'd never ask. 20 minutes later, the combined human and Zilanian fleet faced the largest Korthak force anyone had ever seen. But this time, things were different. Instead of rigid formations, the Allied ships moved in constantly changing patterns. Human fighters darted between Zilanian cruisers while Zilanian technology enhanced human weapons. Lieutenant Kevin Torres, Jake's best pilot, led a squadron of mixed human and Zilanian fighters that moved like a school of fish, impossible for the machine minds to predict. Engineer Megan Shaw worked with Zilanian technicians to create weapons that combined human innovation with alien technology. All ships. This is Ambassador General Lyraeth. The princess's voice came over the fleet communication system. Remember what we learned at Veltara. Stay flexible, stay unpredictable, and watch each other's backs. The battle was fierce, but the Korthak machines couldn't adapt fast enough to counter tactics that kept changing every few minutes. Human creativity guided Zilanian precision, while Zilanian technology amplified human ingenuity. When the last Korthak ship fled or was destroyed, Jake looked around at the mixed fleet that had achieved the impossible. Human and Zilanian ships working together as if they had been doing it for years. Princess, he said over the communication channel, I think your plan worked. Our plan, Jake. None of this would have happened without you and your crew. 6 months later, Jake stood in the observation deck of the New Horizon, now permanently stationed at the first joint human-Zilanian space station. Through the windows, he could see construction ships from both species working together to build something that had never existed before, a truly integrated facility where both races could live and work as equals. Princess Lyraeth, now Ambassador General Lyraeth, walked up to stand beside him. She had traded her royal robes for a practical uniform that combined elements of both human and Zilanian design. Any regrets? Jake asked. About giving up the throne? None at all. I've learned more in the past 6 months than in my entire previous life. She gestured out at the station. Look at what we've built together. Human children learning alongside Zilanian students. Our engineers working together to solve problems neither group could handle alone. This is worth more than any crown. Through the viewing port, they could see the latest addition to their joint fleet. Ships that were neither fully human nor fully Zilanian, but something new entirely. The Korthak hadn't attacked in months, perhaps finally understanding that the two species were stronger together than they had ever been apart. You know what the best part is? Lyraeth said. What's that? We're not the same people we were 6 months ago. Humans are learning Zilanian patience and long-term thinking. Zilanians are learning human adaptability and innovation. We're becoming something new. Jake nodded, thinking about how much had changed. His crew now included Zilanian officers, and Zilanian ships carried human advisors. The rigid boundaries between the species were dissolving, replaced by something better. So what's next, Ambassador General? She smiled. There's a whole galaxy out there, Jake. Other species, other challenges, other opportunities. I think it's time to show them what humans and Zilanians can accomplish when they work together. As Jake watched a group of human and Zilanian children playing together in the station's central park, he realized that Princess Lyraeth had been right about one thing. Sometimes the best way to save your people was to help them become something better than they were before. The whispered words that had started this whole adventure, "Use me tonight," had led not to sacrifice, but to transformation, not to loss but to discovery, and not to the end of two civilizations but to the beginning of something entirely new. In the distance, the stars waited for the next chapter of their story.